So welcome back, guys. I'm finally going to do another truck video. This is going to be kind of a conglomeration of videos from the last couple months. I started this video like 6 times already. I apologize, haven't got it out for an update yet. Lots of people have been asking about it. So, update on our custom hinge build. We're going to get rid of those. Follow along. Let's start at the old videos and then we'll bring you up to where we're at now. Welcome back, guys. Today we're finally going to do another truck video. I've had a lot of requests lately saying, where's the truck, what are you doing with the truck? And to be honest, I haven't worked on it because I've had all these other projects that have been making me money, and the truck doesn't make me money at this point because it's not running. So we're going to do the next project. Let's get started. Okay, so this next project we're going to do, I don't know if you guys seen the video. If you don't, you can go watch it, of me mashing the hood up here and stuff. And the poor thing's just been sitting in the driveway. And I still gotta get the fuel injection going. But what happened was when that hood overextended, it bent these hinges all up. You can see they're all misaligned and misformed. So I want to make some custom hinges. So we're gonna start building a fixture today, and I got straight hinge is an old rusty one, but I got a straight hinge here from a friend of mine, and we're gonna take some measurements off this guy and start building the fixture so that we can build some either custom tube or plate hinges. I haven't decided yet if I want to do like bent chromoly truss tube or if I want to use the plasma cutter and do some sheet metal hinges. So probably gonna do like a gas shock instead of a spring, but we'll see how that goes, so tag along with me. Okay, so getting started here, I got myself paper and pins so I can start drawing this out. Got some dial calipers, measuring tape, and the important parts are there are 7 pivot points here, and we're going to use the centers of these rivets to measure from our pivot points to know what our geometry needs to be. And then the other important part is to know what plane this is in. So we're going to stick, this is the part that bolts to the side of the inner fender well. So if we lay this down on the table, and I'll clamp this down, the important part is that plane where it's bolted in to the fender well in relation to the plane that it is bolted to the hood. And if you look, with that sitting there, they're almost in the same plane. This top of the table pretty much is really close to the center of that bolt pattern. So that's gonna make this a lot easier. And my initial thought is I wanna actually build like a fixture. I'm gonna have to do a left and right because they're mirrored, but I wanna build a fixture so that whether I make plate ones or I make tube ones with joints, I can bolt down the plate that's going to bolt to the inner fender well, and I can bolt down our plate that is going to go to the hood itself, and know that those are locked down in the right spots, and then I can connect the dots in between. So see what we can make. Today we're going to work on our custom hood hinges for the Dent side. If you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, go do that. But if you do, you've probably seen the hood hinges that I've been slowly working on. I haven't got a lot of time to work on them, so this video is going to be kind of hodgepodge, probably over the period of a couple of weeks to get enough footage on this. But anyways, these are our factory hood hinges here. And I've kind of taken the time and dissected them, and this is my mock-up so far on our animation. I just cut it out of sheet metal at first so that I could play with it. And we are going to try to make a custom set of hinges for the truck. Okay, so obviously I've done a fair amount of prototyping here. I've got a lot of my angles worked out, and I think this will lift and come away from the hood properly where it needs to be. There's a couple other things as far as functionality that I need to get figured out. For the old one, had a spring on it, and I think I'm gonna go with the gas shock because it'll just look cleaner and a little more modern. I think I've decided that my gas shock is gonna go in between this member and this member. So we gotta figure out where that placement is and where it's gonna work best. So one of the things to consider when you are designing a hinge like this is, so I'm going to currently try to make my gas shock or gas spring press this direction. So when it presses, it's going to be forcing these 2 points of contact apart and therefore opening this mechanism up. But one of the things you also want to do is you also want it to be over center in a certain place. What I mean by that is when this thing comes down, there's a certain point that when this is pushing open, it's actually pushing it down. So right here, if I'm grabbing here and here, pulling these apart, it's actually trying to close this. And you want that so that when you're driving down the road, this thing's actually pushing it down and helping you hold your hood closed. But then when you undo the latch and you start to go up, you're going to over center, and then these are going to be spreading apart, and that mechanical advantage is going to work towards you to open them up. The other thing I got to get designed on this is I got to redesign these in CAD. I could probably do all this tape stuff in CAD, but it's really new to me, and it's been easier to figure it out the old-fashioned way and then go input it in the computer. I'm learning. Bear with me there. And there we have it. We're actually going to cut this thing out of some semi-substantial material and see how she works. Bring up Mach 3 here. We're prototyping on our Langmuir systems here. It's just a cheap little hobbyist plasma table, but it is my best friend when it comes to this kind of thing. Let's get us all set up. Import. So G-code. Go to the truck folder. Oh, it's not in the truck folder. Why is it not in the truck folder? What the heck? Technical difficulties. Parts to cut. There we go. 79 Ford. Hinges.
I know it's going to be hard to hear me, but this is super exciting. Actually making progress. Look at that. Okay, so that was loud, but look what we got.
We have parts. Still cooling off there. Let me go over and jog our machine over. Look at that! That's pretty exciting. We got some parts all cut out. Let's see what they look like here. Come on, focus. Focus, grasshopper. There we go. That is our Langmuir Systems cut. Not perfect, but perfect for prototyping. Okay, so we're just gonna kind of loosely put this guy together here. This is my old one that I did out of the sheet metal for prototyping stuff. Now I've got some of our, hopefully this is our points for our gas shock. So we'll get this thing loosely assembled with just some bolts. And then eventually we're gonna drill these out and press in some oil impregnated bronze bushings and some shoulder bolts. So let's figure out our spacing. Fully folded there and open up. So let's get our measurements full open, center to center, full close, center to center. So now we just got to spec out our gas shocks. Okay, another day here, but we got some parts in, which I'm pretty excited about. Had some McMaster come in. Let me juggle this. And I got a gas shock. I just went with 15 pounder so that I know it's not going to be heavy enough, but I want something light that I can compress by hand before I actually get the weight. Make sure geometry and points are all still correct. We got shoulder bolts and stuff. I think they're eventually going to be stainless, but just for prototype reasons, I got the more economical steel ones. We got some thrust washers down here, and we got some bronze impregnated bushing. See if we can't put one of these together and see what it looks like. I know I should drill these out and put all the bushings in it and stuff, but I'm just kind of excited to see this gas shock works. Or see what kind of geometry we got. Especially I'm curious over if I got the geometry in the right place so that it's over centers and actually holds it closed. So, because that's kind of something that's important. You don't want the spring to be actually pushing up on it when you're driving down the road. You want to physically over center it and then it be working for you. That might be too far, so what I'm looking at here is when I compress this guy, it over centers and stays down so that when this guy is pushing and it's at this point, it's actually forcing the hood down, which is what you want. But it could just because there's so much slop in the system right now without having actual bolts and stuff in there. I just have this through bolted with some bolts. But I start lifting, the shock doesn't take over until somewhere right in there. And by that time, your hands are gonna be way up in the air. Ugh. This is where you can see, but by that time, but when I'm lifting, that shock doesn't take over till there. So you know that back here, your hands are going to be way up in the air. So I might have a little more geometry to figure out. So, what we have to date. We have our prototype with our gas shock. Our geometry is all figured out. It's in place where it stays down, and then you can over center it and it will go under its own power. You definitely want it to stay down so that the gas shock is actually holding it down, because you don't want to rely entirely on your latch to be holding that down. So it needs to over center and start at least assisting it, and then it take over. So that was a little bit tricky to figure out all that geometry, but we got it figured out. Just show you kind of the progression. This was my sheet metal one I cut out to start figuring out geometry, and then these are originals. This was a ugly spring in stock. Where we're currently setting, I need to draw our top plate still, figure out our spacers. I figured out a different bushing configuration that's going to do a little bit better down here. We have our spacers machined out. So these guys are going to rest right down here where you can see these bushings are. So these guys are going to sit back in here. Figured out the correct spacings so that we have our holes up on top, and this is going to get bolted in. This was tricky because where these guys bolt in, obviously we don't want this bolt to be sticking out the back because it has to bolt up against the mount under the hood there. So what I did was I machined these guys out so that way this nut and the shoulder bolt will be recessed into here, and that will get welded to the mounting plate, and then obviously the mounting plate has its own bolt holes that will fit the stock application. So that's where we're sitting. I appreciate all the support on this. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully we'll have another update here in the next couple weeks and we can make these happen. My initial thoughts are I'm only gonna make 10 sets to sell at first. So if I make any more, it will be at least 9 months to a year down the road after those initial 10. If you're interested and you want to get a part in those first 10, make sure to follow closely where we're at and see when they go up for sale. I still haven't decided what platform I'm going to use to put them up for sale on. They will not be super cheap, I'm going to be honest with you there. Just in materials alone, we're looking at about $200 for a set. That's just materials. That's my costs to make them before any time or anything. I wasn't even planning on making these to sell. I've just had so much interest in them. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can keep track of it there. There's a little more real-time updates on it. I've had several people contact me about them. So make sure to subscribe so you can stay updated. Thanks for watching, really appreciate it. Hit that like button and go build something, guys.